There we go. Something just happened.
Handle it better too, right? Because like maybe 3 or 4 years ago,
There you
we
go.
were pulling our hair out. Now it's like almost.
And then
Okay. Well, now it's showing me that it's
Handle
live.
it better too, right? Because like maybe.
yeah, it came up on me for me.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let me just put the link back in Facebook again and then get it started. Okay. Okay, and it's being recorded anyway. So if it all doesn't work, then they'll just get the recording.
Cool.
All right.
Let's do it.
David and Dave, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man.
Okay, see, I hear it from somebody's recording, so. Okay, so I can hear it. Is it coming from my end or is somebody playing it on their end also?
Feedback?
Yeah, I'm hearing the feedback.
I had it open, sorry.
Okay. Yes, better. All right, so do you hear feedback again also? Again?
I don't hear anything.
I have everything turned off except this.
This is ridiculous. Hold on one second. Okay, everything slows on my end. Sorry, gentlemen. All right. So, David, Tann, thank you so much for joining us. Since Dave is on, there's always a discussion. Are you ever a Dave?
I actually am not a Dave. Well, the only person that actually has ever called me Dave in my life was my college roommate. Was it?
Oh.
Everyone else usually it's David, and sometimes people will actually say my full name for whatever reason. I think it just rolls. So, yeah. So, but I don't mind it if someone did. It doesn't bother me per se. But for whatever reason, I've never been a Dave.
Okay. Any nicknames that you can share?
I actually don't have any nicknames. No.
Okay.
No good one. No, actually, I can't even think of any.
All right. All right. That's respectable. So if I see you on the street, I can just be like, David Tann, and you'd be like, yep, that's
actually the way. That's exactly actually the way that it is. 9 times out of 10. So
gotcha. All right. So thank you for being here. And I know this came out of a discussion we had looking to find ways to develop talent within the African American community, specifically for design, and some of the challenges that we all run across. And I thought it'd be nice if we had a conversation about that. And I think a good way to start it off is maybe talking about a day in the life at your agency in terms of schedule, and then maybe smoothly segue into like, what are the expectations of working for you in your agency, and what are you seeing in the world, and what would you like to see in terms of design?
Man, that's a lot of questions. So
one at a time, right?
a day in the life. I think I'll give a couple different answers to this, just so they can sort of see the evolution. A day in the life today is not the same as a day in the life was a year ago, or even probably 4 years ago when we got started. So when I first got started, I was heavy. It was just me working out of my basement. And so I was doing a lot of the design work. I had a very small team of people that was working with me. So it might have been, I would probably say 75% of what you see on the website came from 2 or 3 people. And then as things began to grow and as we began to build, when you're running a business, the goal is that you have to begin to pull yourself out of that more day to day. So now my day in the life is, I wake up 6:30, feed my kids. I think, one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur is like being able to dictate your own schedule. So, I feed my kids, I take them to school every morning, drop them off, then I come back, and I'm trying to be better about just exercising daily. So usually I'll come back, walk the dogs for 45 minutes, and then get back and kind of start my day. I usually look at my schedule the night before. So before I go to bed, I usually look at my schedule for the next day so I can mentally have an idea of what's coming up. Like, when are my meetings going to be? Do I have the morning free? Do I actually need to get ready really quickly to go to a meeting downtown or what have you? So once I kind of get a sense for what that looks like, then it's just sort of coordinating. I have a project manager in South Carolina. My creative director is in Milwaukee. My designer here. My publicist is here. And so, once I get a sense for what that day is, then it's just a couple of phone calls here and there to make sure whatever is pressing gets taken care of. And then any day could be meetings, lunches. I've been doing a lot of lunches lately because now that I'm not designing, it's more on the business development side. So it's really more about relationships and meeting people and giving people face time and stuff like that. So that has been the bulk of the days lately. Now, when we do get busy and we have busy moments, for sure, I definitely will jump back in if I need to. I've been doing more strategy work than I have been design work lately. So if I need to jump in on that, I'll do that. And then I try to, if I can, be home by like 6 o'clock, 6:30, so I can have dinner with the kids and just sort of see how their day is. And then after that, I'll take a break for a couple hours, maybe watch some TV. And then I'm trying to be better about it, but it is hard as an entrepreneur. Sometimes like I hit a second shift where once everyone goes to bed, I'll put in another couple hours because that's like the only part of the day where nobody's asking for anything. Clients aren't asking you for anything. Staff doesn't need anything. The family doesn't need anything. And so those are like kind of precious moments because that's the only time in the day that you kind of truly have to yourself. But I'm trying to be better about not doing that as much, just to balance things out a little bit more. But it is what it is as an entrepreneur.
That can be tempting, right? Because it's the same for me too. That time at night is so quiet and no meetings, no emails to worry about necessarily. So it's really tempting to dip back in, and it's hard to just ignore that empty time. It's really hard to do.
It is super hard to do. And I think that part of it is just getting older and age, and part of it is like physically I can't do it anymore, or I can't do it as much as I used to. But then I think another part of it too is that it all really depends on where you are in your business, because it's like 3 years ago I didn't have a choice. You know what I mean? Like I had to put in those hours or we're not eating, you know what I mean? Or I'm not getting this client, or this project isn't getting done. So some of that is just progression of where you are as an entrepreneur, business, how the business has evolved, and us having some pretty stable clients. So it's a little bit different now, but it's a blessing and a curse, because it's like you have that free time, but if you take too much of that free time, you'll look up and it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and you're like, oh wait, I gotta get up and feed the kids in 3.5 hours. And like you just do that over and over and over again. And at some point, as you get older, it's just like it's harder to sustain that. You're on mute.
Oh,
I can hear you now. There you go.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, so I've got 2 questions from what you talked about. So you said that second shift. So how do you generate energy to get back to work after that break? And do you feel those hours are as productive, or do you have certain tasks scheduled for those hours?
I mean, one, like, this is what I love to do. So to me, there's been very few times where it's been like, oh man, I got to work on this thing. And generally, if I have that feeling, then it's like, I need to get rid of that client. So for the most part, whatever we're working on, I'm pretty into it. So it's not really hard for me to stay motivated. At the same time, too, you know, I talk to kids a lot and I do a lot of mentoring and speaking engagements. And someone asked me a very similar question as a student. And I just replied, I was like, yo, every single one of y'all are trying to get where I'm at right now. You know what I mean? And so I'm aware of that. And I'm aware that like we're in a very fortunate position. And it's a lot of people whose dream is to be where I'm at right now. And so when you keep that in mind, it's like, yo, I can't get complacent because like the next person is coming. And so I always keep that in mind. And that's a good thing. Like, I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm like, yo, the next person is coming. Someone out there right now is watching this thinking like, yo, in a couple of years, that's what I want to do. And so to me, that's like, you can't rest on your laurels. And, I'm also an introvert. So to me, that time is like the most precious because, it's a minute where you have time to like decompress and like re-energize and recharge and all that stuff. And it's also too, sometimes you're the most focused because like, I think it's interesting because being busy doesn't necessarily mean you're being productive. Right. So it's like, I can fill my day with a whole bunch of stuff. And then at the end of the day, be like, yo, I don't even know what I did today. And so sometimes those are the most productive hours, even if they're not the busiest, they're the most productive. The most stuff actually gets done on my end because there's no interruptions.
Dave, I'm going to ask you, what are your most productive hours?
Generally, it depends on when meetings are set. Because when I know I have a meeting coming, it is really hard to focus on design because I'm thinking about that conversation I'm about to have. So it right after a meeting, I can be really productive when it comes to design work because I know I don't have a meeting coming up. So like if I've got a meeting at 3 and it's 2, it can be hard to focus on the design project because I'm thinking about, well, okay, this client's going to probably bring up this. They're probably going to want to talk about that. And it can be hard to focus. So it really depends on when my meetings are scheduled. And I would say the days that are meeting free, morning or afternoon, really turn out to be the best days. So it's kind of a different every day.
Yeah. And David, you said that you were actually trying to pull back from working that extra session at the end of the night.
Yeah. More just because like, again, it's all just depends on what you want to do. There's no rights or wrongs. It's really what's right for you and your business. But, I've always said like, I'm trying to grow an agency. And so there's pros and cons to that too. Cause it's like, sometimes I believe that you teach your clients how to treat you. Right. So if those off hours are my most productive hours, if I start firing off client emails to clients and I start responding to stuff, then they think they have access to me 24/7.
Yep.
Right. So even though I'm working, I might schedule the email. It doesn't go out till tomorrow morning at 8:30 or 9 o'clock or 10 or 10:30, because I don't want them to feel like they have access to me. And so that was the hardest thing, is that, like when you're starting out, you're taking jobs below value, you're doing jobs to get your name out there and all that stuff, but things have to subtly shift where you got to actually make money and like feed people or run payroll or pay rent or whatever it is. And so you have to begin to make that transition. And that means that like people can't have access to you all the time. And so
you're right about training clients. That's really funny.
100%.
There was something that happened just last week where a client asked for something on Friday and I did it, but they didn't know I did it. I didn't send them the email Monday morning so they would know, oh, I can always ask for stuff on Friday afternoons and get it on Monday. So like they didn't get it until like Tuesday, because again, you're right. You don't want to train people and, set up their expectations.
Yeah, 100%. But that's a hard lesson. You don't learn that until you experience it a couple times and you realize that, oh wait, I would like to do something with my Saturday afternoon, but I'm here working on this project that you sent me on at 5:30 before you left to go out to the club on Friday.
Right.
You're having a good time.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like when you experience that a couple times, then you're like, wait a minute, something's got to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also mentioned earlier that people dream to be where you are, and I don't know if those were your exact words, but that is an accurate statement. A lot of people within our community really want to own their own agencies because they have some ideas about what that means. I don't know if those ideas are always rooted in reality. I think people like us need to make sure that we tell people what it takes to get to where you are. And so with that, like, we could either go down the route of like, what does it take to maintain where you are? What did it take to get to where you are? And then like, what are the expectations for people who want to work with you at your level?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be like the saying, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. And I mean, the reality is like I've been doing this for 20, so whatever people see or whatever people's perception is of what we're doing, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. You know what I mean? And I'm not even joking when I say tears, because it's I entered design school with no art experience. Never took art class in my life, never took a design class in my life, because we're talking early 2000s. People weren't really talking about design, particularly like in our community like that. And so I entered school as a writer. So everything that, I've been able to achieve or we've been able to do was just hard work, man. Like, there isn't really a shortcut to it. It's like you have to put in the hours. And I was just talking to a young lady last week. I consider design to be a craft. It's like a trade to me, My grandfather was a carpenter. He could build a house, but he couldn't read. He was a tradesman. And so, there's something to learning the craft and perfecting the craft of design. And so I think that's where it gets really interesting, because when I meet young individuals, it's really like, okay, are you into the design, cool, flashy part of it? Or like, do you really want to learn the craft of what it takes to be a professional at this? Because if you want to learn the craft and be a professional, cool, we can talk. I'll teach you everything you want to know. But that's, to me, where it's a little bit of a distinction, because anybody can pick up a laptop and anybody can get Photoshop and anybody can get on Canva or get any of these programs and call themselves a designer. I don't knock any of that. Everyone's got to do what they have to do, but it's a little bit different when this is like your profession and this is your trade and this is your craft. And I just try to be a professional about it. And the hours that I put in trying to learn this stuff, man, it's been crazy. Like, even when COVID hit 2 years ago, I taught myself how to do Webflow, just because it was like, all right, I got to pick up a new skill. Nobody's going into the office. Everybody's going to need a web page. If I'm trying to be competitive and keep up, I better start making web pages. We didn't even offer that pre-COVID. And so to me, it's part of that is leading back to your previous question about, the mentality and what it takes is like, you got to be willing to do whatever, to put in the work to make it a reality. And then, I try to stay humble in the sense that, like, I'm not above anything, man. Like I take out the trash every Friday. You know what I mean? I walk around to my employee, I empty their trash, I take out the trash. I'd never ask my staff to do something that I wouldn't do or I haven't done before. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question with that, but
Yeah. So when I ask questions, and especially in like triplicates, sometimes like choose your own adventure
yeah.
or like, just pick what you want and summarize, because I'll always be able to pick up on the next thing to talk about. So with craft, I think a lot of people in our group are having a hard time understanding the difference between hobby, craft, and profession, right? And I think because a majority of the people have not gone through college, maybe to be a designer, they aren't exactly sure what that looks like in reality. And maybe this is a conversation the three of us can have. So what does it look like to you when you see somebody who's dedicated to craft? How can you tell?
Sometimes you can't. So sometimes it's actually not the book that lets you know that, it's the person that lets you know that. So like if I'm interviewing a young designer and they don't have any real work experience and I'm looking at their book, I know that that stuff isn't real, right? I know that they don't have any real restrictions on stuff. They're making up things, whatever. So I'm just looking to see if they have a baseline of the skills necessary to get the job done. Realistically, I'm gonna have to put you in boot camp anyway when you start with me, because I'm gonna make you learn to do it the way that I want you to do it, not the way that school taught you to do it or your friend taught you to do it. So regardless, when you come on, you're gonna have to get retrained anyway. And so to me, when I'm having that conversation, I'm trying to understand, do you think you know everything? Or are you willing to receive that training? You know, do you think that you're the best thing popping, or are you humble enough to realize that like there's a lot for you still to learn? And so the people that I generally gravitate towards and the people that I would say generally stick it out with us, because a lot of people have come and gone. Like they'll come and they'll be like, whoa, I didn't realize y'all worked this hard. You know what I mean? I didn't realize y'all were like this. Like I'm out, you know, and I'm like, yo, how do you think all this stuff happens? And so so the people that that I gravitate towards tend to be the people who have that work ethic and have that drive. You know, like there's a young lady on my team right now who I met a couple years ago, and she was a student in grad school. And I remember her the day that I met her, because all she would talk about is how she was from this small town in the country and she just wanted to prove herself. She just wanted someone to give her an opportunity to prove herself. And then she went through grad school, and then I hired her as an intern, and she truly wasn't the best designer. But now, a year and a half later, she's absolutely killing it, because like she has that attitude of, you know, she wants to learn, she wants to do more, you know. Hey, can I learn how to do web pages? Hey, sure, take it. Hey, I want to do social. Sure, take it. You know what I mean? Like she wants that. And so to me, those are the people that you want to invest in.
So maybe not so much having a stellar portfolio. I know that's one of the fears that I see with that other African-American designers. They've been doing church flyers, or they've been doing nonprofit work, and they don't have those large brands, and they sometimes have to generate work on their own to show their full range of talent.
Yeah.
And then fear that their portfolios aren't going to be sufficient enough to get them a job at a place like Tann Agency.
Nah, man, because here's the reality. Like, it's not that the portfolio doesn't matter. It's just that the portfolio, really, the only purpose of the portfolio is to get your foot in the door. After you get your foot in the door and you get the interview, it's on you. Do you know what I mean? And so a portfolio is like a resume to me. And I tell people all the time that, like, if you're on the other side of it and you understand that, like, if I post a job and I get 50 applicants or 200 applicants or whatever the number is, your first thing you're trying to do is make that first cut. So if I ask you to submit it as a PDF, don't give me a Word doc. You know what I mean? If I ask you to upload it, don't email me or DM me on the side on LinkedIn asking me blah, 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 blah. Right? So it's like all of those things, people are just looking for reasons to trim down. And those basic, did you follow directions? Yay or nay? Did you get it in on time? Did you whatever? If you didn't, cool, that just allows me to eliminate 50% of the population. Right? Then it's getting down to like the craft and the work. To me, it's not really about working for big brands so much. It's just the details of what you're doing, you know? And I say that because the projects that I get most excited about are actually the more mundane projects. It's really easy. People always want to talk to me about the NBA and want to ask me questions about what it was like to work at the Hawks. And I always say, like, it's really easy to make the NBA look good. You're dealing with professional athletes and celebrities and entertainers and all that stuff. And so it's not hard to make that sexy. Take this 75-year-old engineering firm, civil engineering firm, and make that dope. take this health insurance company and tell me why I should care, make me want to pay attention to it. And so what I find is that realistically, the people who say, oh, this is just a church flyer and don't put any detail in it, don't care about it. It's like, well, why are you doing it in the first place? And if you take that approach to this mundane task, how are you going to approach it when I give you this civil engineering project and ask you to do these business cards? You see what I'm saying? And so to me, everything really translates. And it's really, it's the combo of the two. It's the looking at the work to see, okay, do you have the basic skill set necessary? But then it's also, do you have the drive and the personality that's going to help you overcompensate for whatever these deficiencies may be?
When you say basic skill set, and again, this is because this is what people are asking me. If you're doing a church flyer or if you're doing something that's for a larger company, when you're looking at a portfolio, what are your criteria for basic understanding? What are you looking for?
All right. Here's how I look at portfolios. To me, a portfolio is like a movie. There needs to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. Right? So the very first thing that you show me better be stellar, because people are making gut reactions. If the first thing you show me is not stellar, I already have in my mind that you're not it. Right? And now your job is to convince me for the rest of it why you should be. But like, I'm not telling you that. I just already have in my mind, like, wait a minute, that's the thing that you came out the gate with. Because what people don't really understand is the person that's sitting across from the table is really busy. And 9 times out of 10, they have other things that they need to do in that day that are actually going to make the business money. Sitting and meeting with you and spending that 30 minutes with you as an interview, there's no immediate return on that. So what could realistically happen is, I mean, you guys know, a client calls you 5 minutes before you're supposed to go in on the meeting. And it's like, wait a minute, this client is actually a big client of mine. I got to take this call. And so you show up to the interview 10 minutes late. It's not that you're 10 minutes late because you don't care about the interview. It's 10 minutes late because you got to handle your priorities with these clients that are actually paying you. So now your 30-minute interview is actually now a 20-minute interview, right? And if you can't get my attention right then and there, because I just got off the phone deal with my client who's really needy, if you can't give me something that's going to grab my attention right away, like, the chances of you being successful are flawed. So you have to come in knowing that, okay, cool, my 30-minute just got cut down to a 15-minute. I got to be very sharp and precise about how I talk about these projects, right? And I got to be able to move through them elevator pitch style. Okay, cool, this is my first one. This was the setup for that one. This is what we did for it. This is the execution. These are all the deliverables that we had. This was the requirement for the class. This is how I actually went above and beyond the requirement. Any questions? No? Okay, cool. Let me show you project number 2, right? And you can sort of, when someone is driving like that, you're like, okay, all right, your presentation skills are right. You know your projects in and out. You can articulate, right? Usually when somebody rambles, that means that they don't know what they're talking about, or they're not familiar with their material. If you know it in and out, you can take a 2-minute conversation and cut it down to 30. This was the project. This was the assignment. This is what I did. These were the deliverables. This is what my teacher asked me to do. Here's how I solved it. These are the color palettes that I used. I chose this type because of X, Y, and Z, right? This is what I love about the project. Any questions? No? Okay, cool. Moving on to the next one. And so, so I look at that first. Like, if you can command, you can get attention, cool, awesome. I'm going on this ride with you. Then, you show a couple pieces. You want to make sure that there's a piece in the middle that's going to bring their attention back, right? So you're showing work, but as you begin to show projects, it's just like anything else, people's attention might fade. So you want to make sure you have something that's really strong in that middle, that if you lost them for a second, you're bringing them back. And it's also the psychology of, if you have something strong in the beginning, strong in the middle, and strong in the end, in 10 days, when I can't even remember your name, but I remember your work, I'm gonna think that your book was solid because it was dope in the beginning, it was dope in the middle, and it was dope in the end. I don't really like anything that's not that, I don't even remember. So that to me is why there's a good middle. And then obviously you want to end strong because that's the lasting impression that you leave with people. So, some people empty the clip the first 2 or 3 projects. Okay, cool, you got me. But then if the last thing that you show me is super weak, I'm gonna think you're a weak designer. Or I'm gonna think that you're super inconsistent. Or I'm gonna be like, well, I don't really know what I'm gonna get with this person. So they might be in the second cut, and so those are the kind of the ways that I sort of move through it. And then, but when like I'll look at something right away, like, oh, that person's dope. I need to talk to her. Oh, okay, he's got it. Cool. Let's set up a meeting with that person. So.
You said something that I don't think I've ever thought about before, and it is genius. I never thought about going into an agency and having a tiered approach to delivering my portfolio, right? Like if that person is delayed, right, and I got
you got to.
Yeah.
You got to.
That would show your potential employer so much level of like ability of drive and planning and focus. And, if you're not getting upset, but you're like, okay, I respect your time. I know you only got this much time. Let's go. I'd be like, holy crap.
Yeah. Well, if I came in late and you acknowledge that I'm late and you're like, yo, I'm cool with it. Look, I know that you're a super busy guy, Terrence. I understand that. So look, I'm gonna just show you my top 3 projects. If there's more stuff that you want to see, I can shoot you a PDF. I want to be respectful of your time. If you have any questions, shoot me a note. But these are my 3 favorites. Boom, boom, boom. These are the 3 that are most pertinent to what you guys do. However it is, but like if you can acknowledge that and you can command that, then it's like it's not even about the work anymore. You see what I'm saying? It's like this person is prepared, right? They're detail oriented, right?
They're not only prepared, but like they can read the room.
100%.
They get a sense of the urgency, and that's the kind of person you want on your team. Someone who can walk into a project, sense that okay, this is a little more urgent than normal. It's all hands on deck on this one. We need to adjust our priorities and adjust our thinking on this one because there's a little more pressure. So somebody that can sense that is pretty invaluable.
100%. And what you're actually really saying to yourself without saying it out loud is, oh, I can put this person in front of a client.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it really comes down to is like, oh, snap. Like I can put this person in front of a client. Yeah. Okay. Like you got my attention now.
Yeah.
Like you might not be in front of a client tomorrow, but like I know that you have the skills that we're going to get there very quickly. And so then it's like, okay, well, that means that there's less work that I actually have to do. You see what I'm saying? So now it's like, okay, I'm not going to have to hold hands on that. Awesome. Now I can go focus on developing the business.
Yeah, emotional intelligence is something that doesn't get talked about enough when you're sitting in front of a client and they're either upset or they're nervous or they're rushed, or to have that ability to sense the need of the other person on an emotional level is something that doesn't get talked about enough.
And definitely doesn't get talked about in design. You know what I mean? And that's the part that's actually crazy because that is the majority of what we do.
Yeah, there should be a psychology part. There should be a psychology aspect of the design schools because you're dealing with so many different people, whether it's your staff or your clients or vendors or yourself. The ability to sort of understand human psychology is something that they really should be taught.
It's funny because to touch on that, Dave, I think that is actually what made me the most successful in my career, because my actual undergraduate degree is in communication, not art. So it's like I had a comm background, and so I knew how to write. I knew how to talk to people in groups. You know what I mean? I knew how to pitch ideas. I could get on the stage in front of people and talk and not be worried about it. And so in the beginning, I thought that I was actually behind everybody because I didn't have the physical design ability. But over time, you can catch up in the physical, right? But those soft skills that you're talking about, Dave, everybody doesn't have that.
Yeah, you can study typography, you can study color theory, you can figure that stuff out, but you can't suddenly be good with people. Like you have to work at that.
100%. And so that, I think, fundamentally is what helped propel, especially in the beginning of the career, is like, oh, okay, like you can, same thing. We can put you in front of, you can talk to merchants. Okay, we can have you in front of this meeting with leadership. You know, I can put you as a assistant manager on this project, even though you don't have as much tenure, but you can command the team. You can work with people. You can bring people together. So those things, those sort of intangibles are huge. And I think that that's the part where people think that like they can just, because they technically can design something, because they technically can create something in Photoshop, you know, they're wondering why they're not getting to wherever it is that they want to be. But it's like, that's a small part of the equation.
Do you ever think that ever think or worry that you're building up someone's skills for them to then leave and go start their own thing?
I don't worry about that at all.
Okay.
You know, I think it's funny because I mean, I truly do invest a lot in people that I work with. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't work, it does feel like a gut punch. But the reality is, if I'm working with someone and we develop a skill set and they become rock stars at what they do, my actually anticipation is that they should be leaving.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of trying to push them out the nest sometimes. And, you know, I think because nobody ever really does that, and it's really more about like, I'm actually interested in like looking out for you and your best interest. Because that when people feel that, they're going to be better workers, right?
Yeah.
When they know that their boss is looking out for them, when they know that people actually care about their life, when they know that, you know, there's someone that they can confide in, then it's much easier to come and bring your full self to work. It's much easier for me to ask you to work on this weekend and you're not rolling your eyes because you know that like I'm in it with you. You know what I mean? And I actually care, and I'm going to give you those days back, you know what I mean, next week. And you know it, you don't even question it. It's just like, it is what it is. And so when it works and when it's clicking, to me, that's the best thing. And it's like the parent in me, you know what I mean? Like, I'm actually proud. I could give you a laundry list of names of people that I've worked with or mentored and what they're doing now. And to me, that's like the badge of honor.
And that sense of empowerment and a sense of that my boss has my best interest is kind of rare for us.
Yeah,
like we don't get that.
For sure.
You know, so I can definitely appreciate your approach on that.
But Dave, that's why it was important to me, because that when I started my career, that's actually what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I never found it.
Yeah.
I never got it. And at some point I looked around and I was like, wait a minute, I'm now where I dreamed of being. And I know someone else needs that. And like, shame on me if I make them feel the way that I had to go through.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, that's a part of it. And that's just like, that's what the duty and the responsibility is now. Is like, you gotta help do things like this, you know?
I think it's very interesting with everybody scrambling to have diversity and inclusion represented within their agencies. Being a Black man and having these thoughts in our minds and these experiences it's hopefully helping us create a better environmental culture for people to work in across the board, and then specifically for Black designers.
It's funny you said that. Let me just touch on that real quick.
Yeah, of course.
Because you know, I will tell anybody who wants to know, there were two jobs that I think that completely changed the trajectory of my career. Two specifically: Abercrombie and Fitch and Bath and Body Works. And I say that because I literally there's a new documentary on Netflix called White Hot, and this talks about the rise and fall of Abercrombie and Fitch. But I was there during the heyday. So if you watch the documentary and you kind of are, it goes through all the stuff, the discrimination stuff, all that other stuff. But all that stuff was true. I experienced all of it. But the thing that actually was most important to me was like, they were the best at what they were doing for like 15, 20 years. In that retail space, the detail that they put into things, the attention, the way the stores looked, all the attention to detail, like everything from a branding standpoint, whether or not you agree with the aesthetic, whether or not you agree with what they were doing and what their message was, that's, whatever. But as far as how they approached and the methodical nature and the like, everything has to be better than the last thing that we did. And really, really everybody felt it. So to me, like I learned from one of the best retailers to ever do it firsthand. You know what I mean? So, they talk about the CEO and they're like, Mike would call me, you know what I mean? Like I got hella stories, like crazy stories where I'm getting phone calls from London because he's walking by a barricade and the logo's too big on the barricade. Right. And who says that, right? Who says the logo is too big? He's like, yo, we're a premium brand. We don't scream anything. And it made you stop and you're like, oh snap, this is different. Yeah, we're premium. We don't scream.
Yeah.
We don't scream anything. So you're gonna take all these down and replace these with the right size logo. Even though he had approved it, whatever, he didn't care. You know what I mean? It's like, this is not the brand, fix it. And all right, cool, got it, Mike, I'm gonna fix it. And so when you start learning that kind of stuff and you're in those kind of environments, you just pick that up and that becomes the way that you do things. And I think everything that we've built is a reflection of that. Now, was it super hard? 100%. But somebody's got to be the first. You know what I mean? Someone's got to break those things down so that someone else can come along and make it easier for the next. And I think that that's what all this is about.
What about Bath and Body Works?
Bath and Body Works was crazy, man. Like, so if you're in the world of retail, Columbus, Ohio was a mecca.
Yeah.
And that's because Les Wexner, who is the founder of Limited Brands, had all these brands came out of Columbus, Ohio: Victoria's Secret, Limited, Express, Bath and Body Works.
Wasn't Structure part of that too?
Structure was the original. Structure was the original Express.
Yeah.
Rule, Gilly.
I love me some Structure, brother.
Yeah, man.
Oh, aged.
You just dated yourself because people.
Yeah,
I'm old. I'm telling you, I'm old.
And be like, what is Structure? Yeah, I remember when Structure switched
Google
over
it.
to Express. Yeah, I was like, what is happening? But yeah, all that came out of Ohio, and so and they all came from Les Wexner, and so I got to work with them. And Bath and Body Works at the time was really what they call a challenger brand. Nobody was really paying attention to it because at the time, Victoria's Secret was the cash cow. And so you get into those environments where it's like, okay, we got to get their attention. We're trying to prove ourselves. We're trying to make our numbers. We're trying to, develop customer affinity and all this stuff. And now, 15 years later, the roles are completely reversed. Bath and Body Works is the cash cow. Victoria's Secret is not even relevant anymore, and so, all the in-store signage, photography, marketing, all that stuff came out of Bath and Body Works. So to me, like Bath and Body or Victoria or Abercrombie taught me brand, and then Bath and Body Works really taught me the marketing side of it. And that was like, no one really reads, really. So whatever your message you have to put out there, people got to be able to get it in an instant, and then you can come back with the longer form message. But I think of everything like a window display. So if you walk by a window, you know what I mean? Like you're not looking at these super long paragraphs. It's like whatever that message is, whatever that image is, whatever has got to stop you. And then once you get to your attention and you get to the table or you get the item in your bag, then you can explain and romance the story. But in the beginning, it's like, I gotta get your attention. So all that came out of Bath and Body Works.
Attention to detail and like understanding the voice of a brand at all costs. Abercrombie. And then Bath and Body Works, it was marketing.
100%.
Yeah, that's a really awesome combination. Yeah. Dave, I wanted to give you a chance to ask a question if you had any before I go to the next one.
No, I don't have I want to make sure that we reinforce to our our membership group, I think we should refocus on when we start talking about portfolios again. We need to circle back to know your portfolio like it's a script, so it's not necessarily a question. It's just a point that's worth reinforcing for our folks later.
Yeah, I think too, like, let's talk about that because we can even go more in depth about that. I think it's really easy for people to look at an agency. And again, I've been doing this for 20 years. So basically, like what you see on an agency site is no different than Instagram. We're only going to put up the best things that happen to us. Nobody's putting up crappy conversations with clients. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think it's really easy to look at something and think that it came easy or think that that's all that happens. But the reality is like, you're working like crazy. And I say that because I can tell you almost every single brand that told me no. You know what I mean? I would literally change my resume up and cater it to whoever it was I was sending it to. So if I'm sending something to Fossil, I'm taking this piece out, putting this piece in because this piece isn't relevant. So I'm switching that around, catering that up, writing a cover letter with the person's name on it. You know what I mean? Putting Fossil in little folios. I'm doing all that and I'm sending it off. You know what I mean? If I'm applying to Sunglass Hut, if I'm applying to Nike, if I'm applying to whoever, right? I'm doing all those little things to give me whatever advantage I could possibly get. And there was a lot of no's, yo. There's a lot of not calling back. There are a lot of, you're overqualified, you're underqualified, you don't have enough experience. Like at one point I was trying to teach and they were like, you can't be a teacher because we don't consider your design degree a terminal degree. So you can't. So it's like, bro, I got some stories, you know what I mean? And I think that that's the part where, as a young designer, you have to realize like this is a part of the game. You know what I mean? And you got to put in those hours and be persistent and realize that like if you really want it, you can't let the first couple no's keep you from getting to where you want to be.
Yeah, and you can't believe that someone's shiny portfolio is all they ever work on. Sometimes I see portfolios and I always kind of think, I would love for somebody, and you kind of touched on this earlier, I would love to see the brochure, the boring 2-color brochure for the insurance company. Like, show me that. Like, show me how you can lay out text. Anybody can do the clever logo. Like, show me the 16-page annual report that you didn't have any budget for photography on. Yep. Like, show me that one, and then I'll know you can handle anything.
100%.
Then I also wanted to ask, because a lot of people, it's one of the things people come to us, they're just like, I don't know what to put in my portfolio. I don't know. Like, how did you harness your curatorial skills when it came to your work?
Well, one, I mean, I went to a portfolio school. Do you know what I mean? And so, that was part of the gig. Is like, I literally graduated in May, and I think I started grad school in June. Like, I didn't take a break. You know what I mean? And so that's how bad I wanted it. And so there's a little bit difference in that, because going to a portfolio school, the whole point is that you're crafting, you're taking 2 years to learn the skills. And then that last quarter, you're crafting that book as beautiful as it could be. So my portfolio when I was a student was actually a full-size suitcase. It was the size of a full-size suitcase. I had 5 or 6 handmade books in it.
Wow. And
then I had my portfolio that was printed on really nice paper that I change out the pages for whatever. But I think the biggest thing for me, which I think made me a little bit different, was I felt like when I walked in a room, people would judge me. And as part of it is because like I went to Wake Forest, which is a small private school in North Carolina. And, I was on an academic scholarship, but Wake, everyone thinks Wake is huge because they're in the ACC and, they have a big in basketball, whatever, but it's a really small school. And so I was on an academic scholarship, but everyone assumed that I had to be an athlete because like you couldn't have made it good enough grades to go here to be on scholarship. You have to be an athlete. So I had that experience in college. So I knew going into grad school that people are going to have their preconceived notions on who or what they think that I am and what I'm interested in. So when I had the opportunity to really start doing projects that really mattered, I tried to be as far left of what I thought people would think that I was into. So a lot of my work was actually really feminine. So I did a couple pieces, some book covers for this poem called For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Was Enough. And I had a really cool interpretation of that and shot a couple of my friends of different ethnicities. And that was really my breakout project. And then I did a book cover for a teacher, and that was really kind of soft, not really masculine at all. And those two pieces were the game changers because I was in New York at a portfolio review and two ladies came by my table and they're like, wow, your work is really emotional. We sell emotion. Would you come to Kansas City and work at Hallmark? Because that's what a greeting card is. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, they're selling an emotion. And so those, you know, pushing myself beyond what I knew or what I was personally interested in, made me a better designer. And then it also gave me that edge of when I walked away, it was people remembered me. And that's the other thing too that people don't realize when you're going off and you're doing these interviews. If I interviewed 5 people in a week, 10 people in a week, 6 people over 3 weeks, whatever it is, I might not even remember your name. But if you did your job, I'm gonna remember your work. Hey, remember that girl who did that thing, who had that piece in her book? Yeah, call her. We need her. You know what I mean? And so that's the way that it actually really goes on the inside. And so you want to make sure that when you leave, like, should be the question. When I leave, what are they going to remember about me? What's the piece that I want them to remember me by? You know, what is that thing that when they don't remember my name, they're going to have some vision of who I am? Well, what is that thing that I want them? What is that image that I want them to have? And so to me, it was like, by doing those pieces, it was like, wait a minute, that guy did that thing with the flowers and the women and you did that? Yeah, I did that. Oh,
That's
okay.
smart.
You know.
Yeah. It's portfolio strategy. It's work strategy.
100%.
Yeah.
But it also proves you designed to the brief and not, you don't have like just one thing you can do. Like you design for whatever the need is, for whatever the audience is, not for your own personal thing you want to do.
Dave, I'm glad you said that, because that is fundamentally to me what a designer is, right? If you want to do what you want to do, you're not a designer, you're an artist. An artist can create from within. An artist wants to express himself. An artist has to get their feelings, their emotions, their whatever out. Designer, everything I do is solving somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna put my spin on it. I'm gonna have my point of view. I'm gonna bring my knowledge to it. But at the end of the day, I'm solving your problem. I'm solving someone else's problem. And so people have asked me before, they were like, you know, how would I know the work that you've done? And you should never know anything that I touch. And their jaws drop. Because if I'm doing my job right, I'm representing the brand. I'm not representing.
There are some designers who they're successful, but I've talked about this before, that I can look at a logo they did for a brewery, and then I can look at a logo they did for a coffee company, and then I can look for an annual report they did for, I don't know, a boot manufacturer, and I can tell they did it because their style is all over it. And whenever I see stuff like that, I wonder, are you looking at the brief, or are you building out your own personal portfolio? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, I mean, and it's all like your point of view. I think, you know, my point of view is just baked in the sense that like I don't consider myself to be an artist. I can't draw, you know, like you're getting stick figures from me, triangles, squares, and like circles. And so I've never considered myself to be that. Now, it is different. I will say that, you know, my point of view on it has changed a little bit in the sense that now that I have the agency, you know, people kind of like, ooh, y'all are, they always have to figure out a way to grapple or wrap their head around what it is that you do. So it's like, oh,
Categorize you.
you guys are a little bit edgier. You kind of have a little bit of a different approach, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like maybe we're creating our own sort of thing. But at the end of the
Quality,
day,
not a style, right? Like they're talking about a quality. Like you have a quality to your work,
yeah.
not a specific style.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that I get the most pride in is you could look at a book and you could see, you know, crazy colors for a podcast company. You know, you can see something very muted for whatever. And like, I try to push our team to do different things, you know, and so you're 100% right in that. So it's worth.
I go ahead, Dave. Were you about to say something?
I was just gonna come. I'm just scrolling through your portfolio while you're talking, and I'm just looking at things that like, okay, yeah, that project doesn't look like anything like that project, but there's quality throughout the whole thing. So it was just gonna be more of that.
I appreciate that, man. You know what I mean? Like one of my favorite ones is a project called Frequency.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
It was painful getting to it, but when we got to it and it was like, yo, this really embodies what this founder is all about and the quirkiness of this brand and the mixing of these old vintage images with this cool pop culture kind of treatment.
Yep.
And weird bubblegum colors. Like there are certain moments that when you hit it and you get that feeling, you're like, yo, this is it.
Yeah.
And you know, and then, you know, look at some of the other stuff and, you know, Devin Taylor is completely like polished and, you know, prim and proper and everything is in place. And, you know, so to me, the ability to sort of express what your clients can't is ultimately what we're here to do.
This has been one of the most, I hate saying this, but it just has felt like one of the most professional conversations. So clean. So it's really good.
What'd you expect, man? What you wanted to be?
Well, you know, when Dave shows up, you never know.
Yeah, I'm a problem. I'm admittedly, I'm a problem. You could hear the concern in his voice when I logged on. You could hear it.
Yay!
I was like, let's do it.
No. So I want to wrap up by, we were talking earlier and you said that the story of your brand is quite an interesting one.
Oh, yeah.
Could we hear a little bit about that and then how our community can help you? Those are the two things I'd like to talk about and then we can close it out.
Yeah. So I say that because like we didn't do our own branding. We're a branding firm and I hired someone else to do my brand. I didn't anymore.
Interesting.
And the reason why is I could understand, I knew the concept of what I wanted to do from the very beginning, but it's just like anything else. When you're working on your own stuff, it's hard to be a creative director when you're the designer also. Because like you lose that distance of being able to look at things objectively. And so, you know, we kind of had a look for about a year and a half. And I was like, this isn't it. I'm not really feeling this. But if I have to do it myself, it'll never get done. Because in my head, nothing is going to ever be the right thing. So I found someone who had a style, who I really respected, and was like, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Take a stab at it. And he came back to me with 3 concepts. And one of them was close to what we have, but wasn't quite it. But it was close enough where I was like, all right, cool. Now we can take this and modify this and do whatever. And when we got it, we're like, yo, this is it. And the actual original logo didn't look, the eyes were different and the mouth was actually a little bit bigger. And I was like, well, if that's supposed to be a tongue, the proportions off, we got to bring this down. And then I asked him on a Friday, speaking of late night client, in the week client asks, I asked him on a Friday, we had already scheduled our celebratory lunch for Monday, because I was like, yo, this is dope no matter what. And I said, hey, can you create a family for this? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, can you just do a bunch of different expressions? And so he's like, oh, okay. And so he came back and he had tried maybe like 20 different things. And so we just laid them all out on the table. And there are all these different expressions. And so basically, like we've used it on some of the videos as a bumper at the end, but you'll see like the face scrolling through all the different expressions. And that's where that came from. And so, so we laid them all out on the table and we're like, all right, well, which one is it? And we just kept going to that one. We're like, yo, that one has been through something. Like that one has a story to tell. And he was in the car with his daughter. He's like, yeah, I just showed it to my daughter. And she's like, ooh, daddy, he has an owie. And I was like, yeah, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one. And so, yeah, so that's the story behind that. And I think that, you know, for those who are trying to do their own branding or self-branding or whatever, like that's one of the hardest things to do. So sometimes it's better to have a little bit of distance.
Yeah, I've had 3 logos in my career for myself, and I hate every last one of them. I should hire somebody from the community to design a logo for me.
Yep.
On it. Okay. And then the last question. Thank you for that story. So how could this community of African-American designers who are trying to be professionals, who are focused on their craft, how can we be of assistance to you?
To me, it's really not more about being of assistance. To me, I think that things like this are what give me energy. You know what I mean? And I don't think people really truly understand that, but you know, the ability to talk and mentor and whatever, like when it happens and when people are responsive and when people really get stuff out of it, that is like the best experience. You know, when you can talk to someone who's young or who has an idea or who has never even heard of some of the careers that you're talking about, and then you get a note back 2 days later, like, yo, ever since I heard this makes me want to do, that's how you get back to me. You know what I mean? Like you get back to me by actually listening to some of the things that we're talking about and going back and like sharpening your sword. Because, you know, once you get on, now your job is to go back and pull the next person up. And so I think when you're in these situations and you have anyone who's somewhat successful and they're taking their time to spend with people and mentor people, that is truly the way that you repay them. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like some of these big designers, it's like, yo, the money that I lost by spending this hour or whatever that I'd be billing a client for, like as a student, you're not going to pay me for that. You know what I mean? I don't expect that from you. You know, what I do expect or what I do want is like learn something and like go back and be better. And if you can do that, then everything takes care of itself.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I think our community knows where to find you. We've been posting your stuff enough. Hopefully they are brave enough to show their work, their best work, when you have these calls for help with design. And again, I just wanted to thank you for your time. It's been a very lovely conversation. David, awesome. Dave, thanks for hanging out. And I'd love to do this again whenever, but this was a good one. So y'all have a good night.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
Yeah, appreciate your time, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.